pleasure to have you here today.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. You are going to where in the fall?
I'm going to NYU in the fall
Oh,
to start
no.
in their MFA graduate acting program. I'm over the moon. I still feel like it's not real yet and it'll get real, but I'm still in that I'm really going to this school. It doesn't make sense.
Like, when is it going to get real? Are you going to wait for, is someone going to call you? Are you going to is it when you step on campus?
Listen, I thought the phone call was fake when they told me I got in. I was like, where's Ashton? Am I being punked right now? There's no way.
That's awesome. Well, this time is going to be about your journey. And I want to learn every step of the way so that, people who are just now applying can kind of relate or maybe pick up a couple tips to help their journey be successful too. So we'll start with, just letting you share, what was your experience with acting and with before auditioning? Tell us a little about your background. Yeah. So where we get up to speed with, when you get into prep.
Yeah. So I've always had this, I've always loved theater. I feel like seeing the people I loved on TV inspired me to even take an acting class. I took my first acting class in junior high, and I have never found anything that made me feel so free and so nothing else. I didn't feel judged. I didn't feel this pressure. I felt like I could be weird and be authentic with nobody looking at me weird or crazy or anything. And I actually I grew up with a stutter. I was in speech therapy for about 10, 11 years. Right. And whenever I would perform or go on stage, my stutter never happened. So that was also a thing that I felt safe on stage because I could actually talk freely on stage.
Interesting.
So I pursued it through junior high, and I pursued it all 4 years of high school. And I'm pretty tall. I'm about 5'11". So growing up, people always asked me if I played basketball, and I was like, no, I like to play pretend. That was just my thing. I didn't really play sports.
Great response.
And I ended up applying to a couple. I applied to schools in California. I think I applied to only Cal States, and I ended up getting into Cal State Fullerton, and I pursued theater there. And I had parents who were super supportive, which I know is not the case for everyone. I know, but my parents would have killed me if I didn't go to school for theater because they knew how much I loved it.
Wow, that's great.
So the support was insane. And I ended up making the BFA in my undergrad. They run a cut program, so just because you start as an acting major doesn't mean you'll finish as one. So I ended up making it with 15 other classmates, and it was very difficult. I had an amazing teacher who believed that diamonds are made under pressure, and that was kind of her philosophy. So it was a lot of pressure, but I think so much of what she taught me, I don't know if I would have been able to handle this audition process for grad school and what it took without her. So it was hard, but I feel like I was well prepared for the anxiety I had around this process, the stress, the pressure, the tears that came, because there were tears of just overwhelm. And
so tell me a little about, yeah, go ahead. Finish.
Sorry.
I was going to say that pressure that, you felt like without some of that experience, you might not have been as prepared as you could have been. Tell me what was the maybe number one thing that, you either kept telling yourself or that was always ringing in your head that kind of kept you focused?
I think I kept telling myself that no matter what happens, I'm going to pursue acting either way. So I'll either be pursuing acting in grad school or not in school and just hustling out in the street. It wouldn't be that's what kind of kept me focused, is that grad school, if not getting in, would not be the end of me acting. It would just be I would just be taking a different route. So that kind of kept me focused on, because the big goal is just I just want to make a living doing what I love. And whether that comes from, pursuing my MFA in school or just out in the streets auditioning and going, and so it was just remembering that no matter what happened, I was still going to be pursuing this kind of kept me focused.
That's amazing. I love that.
Mhm.
That's so important. Mindset is a huge deal when you're auditioning for drama school.
Yeah.
You want to prepare the pieces to the best of your ability. But sometimes your mindset can either sabotage you
Mhm.
or it can actually like give you the advantage.
Mhm.
If you can, so that's something that I love that you shared. All right, so let's get into when you made the decision to audition. Like,
Yeah.
was it when you were in your bachelor's, or when did you kind of decide I'm going to get my MFA and why?
So grad school had never been, I was talking about grad school in my undergrad, and grad school was never, it was never a when, an if thing for me. It was always a when thing. It was just when would I go? I knew I wanted to go to grad school. And I have friends, I have people who like would never, could never, don't want to touch it again. But for me, I personally feel like I'm someone who I thrive in structured education. I like structure is my jam, and I feel like
Oh yeah.
when I'm just immersed in something all the time, for me personally, that's when I think my growth happens the fastest. Is when I'm just submerged in it, eating it, breathing it, living it, sleeping it constantly. And I apply to schools that I think would take me to that next level, because I feel like there's things that I have on the inside, that I struggle to bring out on my own, that I think certain programs would bring out. And I ended up getting into one of those programs.
Yeah, that's awesome. Let's talk about schools. Let's talk about
Yeah.
schools that were on your radar. We'll get into monologues in a second, but yeah, just when you had to choose what schools to apply to, you're talking about schools that would bring that out in you. And, how did you determine? I know you're doing your research, but like,
Yeah.
what are some of the things that you thought this about this school, this about this school? Can you kind of enlighten us about that?
Yeah. So I ended up applying to only 4 programs. Again, this grad school process, I started kind of late. So I didn't feel like I knew a ton about what I was doing. And maybe I should have applied to more, I don't know, but I just applied to what I was looking at the time, which in the schools were Yale, Columbia, NYU, and USC. And I had other friends who were in this process who applied for like 10 schools. And I was like, should I have applied for 10? Like, I feel like I screwed up and ruined my chances. But once I applied, I was like, you know what? And this is, I just got to do my best at this point. And then all the schools I applied to, the main thing I was looking at through all programs was, and what I got from the 4 I applied to was the focus on who we are as people before who we are as actors. And I didn't really feel like I got that in my undergrad, like an experience that wanted to, that they were going to draw from who I am
Mm,
and what does Noah have to offer. And with these schools, and there's more, I'm sure, but with these 4 I applied to, I felt like Noah was going to be able to be Noah, and Noah was going to be able to inform all these characters, all these situations, all these plays I'm going to be working from.
yeah, that's going to be exciting. And I agree with you. I think that you're going to have a blast. Because acting, we're not going to get into this right now, but the philosophy of like acting is so much about self-awareness so that you can either just strip away everything and just be seen, or so you can kind of more strategically transform, make conscious decisions about what you're putting on in order to inhabit new characters. And like, but it all comes from knowing who you are first. And
Yeah.
that's always evolving, right? But I'm so excited for you. I'm just like blast. Let's talk monologues. Let's talk
Yeah.
preparation. So did you have these monologues prior, or did you discover them recently? Tell us about how you found your monologues and when and what they are.
Yeah. So I ended up having 5 memorized altogether. 4 of them I was already very familiar with. And so I started this process kind of late. And I don't know, I wouldn't necessarily recommend anyone like starting in like October. But the pieces, 4 of the 5 pieces I've had for years. I didn't feel like I was starting from scratch. I didn't feel like I didn't know what to do with them. So my contemporary dramatic piece was from a play called The Submission by Jeff Talbot. And I've had that for like 6 years. I had another piece called Diversity Quota that I got from a teacher of mine. I've had for 5 years. Another monologue from Anton and Show Business by Jane Martin. I've had that for, I think, 4 years. And I did Viola from 12th Night, which I never did it in school, but a friend of mine worked it in class. And I knew what it was about. I knew the context. I saw her do it. I understood that. And then the only piece I didn't have, and which was a new piece, was I did Queen Margaret from King Henry VI, Part 3. So that was the only one that was new, but it was one. The other 4 I had, like, I was familiar with. I knew I saw people do them in class. So I started late, but I had so much history with the pieces already.
And just, that's great. Do you remember, because it was so long ago, do you remember like how you came across those? Was it just in your college library, or
Yeah.
you saw somebody work on it?
So for the submission, so at my undergrad, they ran a cut program. So we had 2 juries, and the jury was a timed 3-minute scene with a partner. And I had my partner, and we were reading plays, and nothing was like clicking, and I didn't really feel connected to any of them. And I went into our play library one day, and I just busted in, and I was like, does anyone have recommendations for plays for me and my friend Nick? Because I have nothing, and I'm freaking out. And a girl in the library goes, what race is your partner? I said he's white. She goes, I got a play for you. And she gives me the submission. And I think I read it that night, and I text my scene partner, and I was like, Nick, I found it. I found the play. We're doing it. So I got that from a friend of mine out of just sheer desperation. The Anton and Show Business I got from a teacher of mine. We were in class one day, and this is a teacher who I still have a relationship with after college, because he was like that kind of professor for me. And before class one day, he was like, hey kid, I read this play and I found this monologue, and he goes, it's you. It's just so you. And I read it, and I was like, this is so me, and I was nervous. And this is a piece that was, it's a memory piece. And I was really nervous about doing that, because I've heard there's a lot of talk about doing, and ultimately I just decided it's a piece that I love, and it's a piece that sets me on fire. And I'm like, you know what? I'm going to make it as active as I can, but it sets me on fire, and I'm going to do it. Like, I'm just going to, so I ended up doing that one. So, and that came from a teacher of mine. Viola from 12th Night, I saw a friend work it in class, and it was funny, and she workshopped it multiple times, so I was able to get the context. I ended up reading the play, but I got context for it. I saw her choices. I kind of got what was happening. So I saw a friend work that one. Diversity Quota, it's a standalone. It's not from a play. I found that online. I can't even remember what I typed in to find it, but it came up, and it's I love satirical dry humor, and that's that entire piece. And then Queen Margaret from King Henry VI, I ended up messaging my Shakespeare professor from undergrad, and I said, hey, I'm auditioning for grad schools. What pieces do you kind of think fit me? What do you think I could do? And I told her what I was looking for as well. And I said I was looking for a character who kind of snarky, kind of has a bite to her. And she recommended Queen Margaret, and I was like, oh, this is perfect.
Yeah, I bet you had fun with that.
Yes.
Well, that's great. So it sounds like, if we're kind of like synthesize a little bit about where you got these from, it sounds like you got them from friends and mentors.
Yeah, absolutely.
Really just kind of asking.
Mm-hmm.
But that people really need to hear that, because it's like sometimes we feel scared to like put pressure on other people to tell us it's not about getting a monologue like your colleague or your mentor gave you, which is like, this is right for you. That's a
Yeah.
real blessing. That's a gift that falls into your life. But like, at least you just put yourself out there, right?
Mhm.
So that's awesome. Cool. Now, so you got the Queen Margaret the Queen Margaret came after, when did you get that piece and why? Because you already had a Shakespeare, you just wanted a second Shakespeare?
I did. I wanted a contrast to Violet, and I wanted a contrast to I think my pieces. Yeah, I definitely wanted a contrast to Violet, and I also wanted to, because my teacher, this professor, had asked me what I was trying to showcase about myself, and based on what I said, like I just wanted someone kind of who was sarcastic and dry and headstrong. And Queen Margaret was all of that. I think she's just such a gangster. Like she's just, I love her. And I think, yeah, that's what it was. And I think Queen Margaret I found later than all of them. And that's the one I was most stressed about because I wasn't familiar with the play. So that's the only one I was kind of, I don't want to say I was panicking, but I was just overwhelmed because I just wasn't familiar with this play, this character at all. And I think I found her maybe I want to say mid-October. And I just started working it. I ended up cutting it a bit because the speech I did was pretty long. Yeah, that's the only one I was worried about just because I wasn't familiar with it.
And how familiar were you? You said you had a Shakespeare professor. What was your experience with Shakespeare up to that point? How did you feel about your Shakespeare abilities?
I felt decent about my Shakespeare abilities. Because we did have a whole class on it in undergrad. Prior to that class, I was like, I don't understand Shakespeare. I don't get it. I have no idea what these words mean. But we had to read all these books and, understanding Scansion and all these things. So like, I feel like I had a better grasp of it, but I still, it could have been better. And this is why I went to Stacy. And I remember when I did Viola for Stacy, I don't think I even had Queen Margaret when I met with Stacy. And the best thing Stacy said was, so I ran through the whole speech, and then she said, okay, now do it again, but do it how you talk. Like do it how Noah would just say these words. And I literally just spoke the text like how I'm talking to you, like this body language, and and I went through the whole thing, and she was like, that's where it needs to be. You don't have to pretend, you don't have to be, Dame Helen Mirren and try to do all these things. Like incorporate how you sound, your sense of humor, the way you move your body. And that, I think that took, once I brought it to me, I like all these choices started coming because I brought it to like who I am, and I brought my own humor, I brought my own inflections, my hand gestures I do. Like I was able to, like she made me feel like it was okay to speak it in my voice, how Noah talks. And that changed the whole speech. It changed everything.
Amazing.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah. So I want to go in so many different directions right now. Like, I want to get to what happened in the room.
Yeah.
But there's only one thing before that, which is the coaching.
Yeah.
Right. You talked about some of these things. Is there anything else that you really had light bulb moment wise, or that was like a real, light bulb moment for you where you felt like I'm ready now, or I felt like my quality of work went really up?
Yeah. Definitely. I mean, I really, having her say, I just felt so empowered after she told me that I could speak Shakespeare in my language, because Shakespeare just feels so big. He feels so like, I'm not worthy of saying these words. I must sound like somebody else. But I'm like, no, I can talk how I sound. I just felt that gave me so much ownership of the words, because I wasn't trying to be who I saw do it on Broadway or at the Old Globe. Like I could do it how I how I sound, and it came from me, and I just felt so empowered. And we also worked the submission, which is a very this piece kind of starts at 100, and it just takes off. And she took me through this exercise where I was kind of starting the piece flat, but this character, she's had this conversation with this guy a billion times already, and she's sick of it at this point. And I was kind of starting just kind of too laid back, kind of too even keel about it. So we kind of did an improv before we started the piece, and it kind of got my blood, boiling. And by the time the piece started, I was like at her throat, which is where it should have been the whole time. And there's levels of it where we kind of like they kind of go into a calmer piece of the conversation, and they kind of get to this understanding. But the top of it is guns blazing, foot on the gas, and I wasn't starting there. But that improv we did, and then she also let me incorporate my own experience, because it's a character who was talking about the Black experience, and she told me to incorporate what I've heard in my own life, and the things that I've heard, the things that irritate me that I've heard that people have said, and making sure that that's what was at the forefront of my mind, not at the back, because the piece has got to start there. It's got to start with that energy. So that kind of, that piece started in a totally different place than where I had it.
Love that. And I'm sure that made an impression. Like when you got told by these schools, now we can kind of get into the room of these auditions. Like and I want to hear like what pieces you chose to do for the schools, and if it was the same two pieces or if it was different. But like, it had to have made you feel like, because you have that experience in the coaching room, and because you had really taken your level up, that when you were told to go ahead and perform, like you were able to really play, as opposed to, feeling like maybe you didn't prepare enough, and now the spotlight's really on you. There's already enough nerves because of all the energy, but hopefully you felt prepared to where like you could really dive into the work once they told you go ahead.
Yeah.
So
I did.
Tell me what happened in the rooms when you walked in, which pieces you did and how you felt.
Yeah. So Yale was the audition I was most nervous for. That Yale was that was my number one choice. And I'm in the room with everybody, and I'm nervous. I mean, I feel like my heart is like beating out of my chest, and I'm trying to calm down, and I'm sitting in the chair just kind of meditating and breathing. And it's two different people, so half of us will be in the room with one person, the other half will be with another. And I think I was maybe fifth in the order, and I'm like in this little waiting room hallway, and I'm just freaking out, and I'm trying to keep myself composed, but I am nervous. And I start, which is what you should never do, but I couldn't help it. I started gauging like, oh man, this person's been in the room for a long time. They probably love him. He's probably doing great. And I just start psyching myself out, and I'm like, I kind of got myself back on track, because I was like, that's not fair to me to like focus on somebody else when I have to do my thing. I can't spend my time focused on what they're doing, what they think. And so it's my turn to go in the room, and I introduced myself, and they asked me the pieces I'm going to be doing, and I chose to do off the bat the submission and Viola from 12th Night. And I actually wasn't going to do the submission first. I was going to start with Shakespeare, but one of my undergrad professors said start with the submission, because it is my strongest piece. So I thought I should end with my strongest piece, but he said you got to start strong, and I said okay, so I'll do that. So I started with that first, and then I went into Viola from 12th Night. And during the Yale audition, we had to have our masks on, and during the audition, so my mask kept coming off. So I'm doing my pieces, and I'm like fixing my mask like every time. I'm like, do I take it off? But I just kept it on, so I kept fixing it the whole time. It was so frustrating. But I went through it, and I did the submission, I did 12th night, and I said, thank you. And I was about to leave. And she goes, do you have anything else? And I was like, oh, yes, I do. And I think I ended up going with, I did Anton and show business, which I was very nervous about doing that. I actually told her I had Queen Margaret, and she asked if I had something else besides that one. And I said I had Anton and show business, which was the memory piece, which I was kind of nervous about doing. But I also chose to do this one sitting down. And I think she could tell I was nervous as well, because before I got into it, she was like, just slow down, take your time. And I was like, okay. So I put up the chair and and this is the piece that just sets me on fire. So I just took my time, and I love this piece. And I hope that came across, like, just how much this piece means to me. And I just sat there, and I gave the piece, and she said, thank you. And she said, hang around to see if they want to see anything else. So I come out and I sit back down, and I'm like, oh, I should have done a different piece. I should have went with something else. I should have done this. I should have done, like, all just beating myself up in my head. And the room monitor comes out with like this piece of paper in his hand. And it was very dramatic. He was like, in my hand, I have this piece of paper with the names of the people who have a callback. If your name is on here, come with me. If not, thank you. You know, you can please audition again next year. And I'm sitting in the back of the room, and he puts the paper up in front, and I'm in the back, and I'm like, there's no way my name is on that piece of paper. There's no way my name is there. And I start slowly making my way up, and there's my name on this piece of paper with one other person. And I'm like staring at it, and I'm like, I'm not even like processing that my name's on this piece of paper. And it was just so crazy. And we follow him back in the room, and I was going first. And this time both professors were in the room this time. And I go inside, and they told me which ones to do. So they had me do the submission again. At this time, I'm feeling very confident. I feel very like
I am so confident. Now I'm on top of the world. Everybody should be watching me. I got called back.
but it was also because, like, I was so nervous originally, but I had already got it out of my system. I did the piece once already, and I was nervous. Now I'm doing it again, and I feel like I can maybe fix what I maybe wasn't on top of. And I just felt more grounded. So I ended up doing the submission again. The mask stayed on, didn't come off. And then she asked me to do Anton and show business again. And then they asked to see Queen Margaret. And I felt like it went well. I didn't.
They got 4 out of you.
Yeah. And I felt like it went well. And they told me to check back at around 12 p.m. to see if I made the end of day callback list, which I did not. But it was a really amazing experience. And I mean, I think I just learned a lot about how to handle myself when I'm just so, I mean, I don't know if I've ever been this nervous before. Like, my nerves, my shoulders were tight, my heart was pounding. So it ultimately, like, didn't go the way I had hoped. But I got farther than I thought I would get.
That's awesome. That's awesome. You put in the work. And, you know, we're talking about Yale right now. And it's not even like the star of the show, right? The star of the show, NYU MFA.
NYU, yes.
I want to hear how that went. By the way, did you audition for Yale before NYU?
I did.
Okay, so that was an experience that was already under your belt.
Yeah.
And
Yale.
now into NYU.
Mm-hmm.
I wish we could cover every audition in every, but give us, like, okay, now you're going into NYU. How are you feeling? How did it go?
Yeah, going into NYU, I was still a little bruised from Yale. So I was thrilled for making it to final callbacks. But there was still, I was hurt. so I felt kind of like, oh, I didn't get in. So, I mean, I hope NYU works out. I wonder if I'll be good enough for this, I remember for the NYU initial audition, I did the same pieces. I did the submission and Violet from 12th Night. I ended up making it to the afternoon session. In the afternoon session, I was like, the first two pieces worked. I'll do the same ones again. I did the submission and Viola from 12th Night again. And they gave me a note. They gave me some adjustments, and I took them and I did the best I could with them, and that was it. And then I ended up
Tell me, what did they ask you to do?
So the same thing Stacy had said for this, they gave me a note on the submission, and the note was, put your foot on the gas at the top of it. And I'm like, I guess I wasn't doing that as fully as I thought I was, but I'm like, Stacy said the exact same thing to me. Like, the piece has got to start.
You mean coaching at how to get into drama school was just like the real audition? Can you believe it? What?
I was so surprised.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Same note. So I was like, okay, Stacy has already worked this with me. Like, I know I've worked it. I know what she had me do. And I got into that mindset quick, and I started the scene on 10, and he didn't let me finish. I think he just wanted to see if I could do that. So I got through about half of it, and that was it. And then I ended up making it to the end of day callbacks, which I didn't do the submission or 12th night for this end of day. They told me to do different ones. So they had me do Queen Margaret, and they had me do diversity quota, and it went well. And I think I got a note on Queen Margaret to just have more fun with it, to have more fun basking in kind of her arrogance and her sarcasm, and kind of enjoying making fun of York in this prison. And that was it. And I ended up, maybe about a month later, getting the call that I was invited to final callbacks, which was over Zoom. And so that was a 3-day process. And the first 2 days of NYU's final callbacks were kind of just getting to know the program. So getting to talk to faculty, current students, talking to alumni, school schedule, what the program's going to be about. And the third day was like audition day. So we're putting you through an hour voice class, an hour dance class. We have 2 assignments to do, all over Zoom. And I was ready. I think the audition day started 9 o'clock for them. So 6 a.m. for me in California. So I was like, I'm gonna make sure I get a good night's rest. Because if I gotta be up at 6, I want to kind of be up maybe at like 4:15 just to warm up, like make sure my voice is warmed up and my body, I'm energized. And so the day starts at 6 a.m. my time. I woke up at 11.
What are you talking about? 11 a.m.?
I checked my phone and it says 11.
My Lord.
And Anthony, my heart is out of my chest. I open my laptop and I'm like, there's no way. There's no way. There's no way. There's no way. And I don't see any emails, no alerts. And I'm like on the verge of tears, honestly. And I'm like, there's no way I missed half of my audition. Like there's no way I missed this. And I did the only thing I could do, which is I text my mom, and I was like, Mom, I messed up. I don't know what to do. I don't know who to email, who to call. And I have an app on my phone called Sleepy Time that tracks my sleep. I think I told you this. And the Sleepy Time app was like, time for bed. Are you ready to go to sleep? And I was like, time for bed. Wait, what? And I look out the window and it's nighttime. I took a nap and I woke up at 11 p.m. And honestly, to me, that is the worst case scenario. Like missing half of the audition day, half of final callbacks is the worst case scenario. And my body had physically lived through that. I was like, I'm going to go in here today and have fun. Like I literally just lived through the worst thing that could have happened. I just felt like this freedom of like, I just lived through the worst thing. I'm just going to have fun today and I'm going to have the best time I can have. and I'm gonna have a blast, and like nothing else matters. So I mean, that was a terrifying experience, but it was just this pressure of like, I just lived through the worst thing. I'm just gonna have fun today. Like, I'm just gonna go in here and give my pieces, and I'm gonna dance, and I'm gonna go through this voice class and do these assignments, and I'm gonna have a good time. And that's just what it's gonna be today.
Yeah. How did it feel?
It felt so, I was still nervous. I was still nervous being, there was a point where we had 2 assignments to do, and they broke us out into groups. So I was in a group of maybe 15 people. And I remember hearing everybody speak and talk. And I did remember feeling kind of in over my head. I just felt like, at this point, everybody's talented. Everybody's read Lynn Nottage. Everybody's read August Wilson. Everybody's read the plays I've read. Everybody's done Fitzmaurice. I just didn't feel like, I didn't feel special. I just remember thinking like, I'm just in too deep. I don't know. I don't know what I'm thinking. So I tried to quickly snap out of that, because that was not going to help me at all. But that's how I was feeling. But I did the group assignments. It went well. And later that day was just going through my pieces again in front of the faculty. And I did the submission. I did viola from 12th night. And then they asked to see the kind of comedic satirical piece, diversity quota. And that was it. And I ended up getting off the call. And then I had my interview later that night, and which was them just kind of getting to know me. And I was asking them questions about the program. I told them the story of how I thought I overslept, and they were cracking up. And
What questions, if any, did you have for the program?
I think I was asking them, I asked them about adaptability in regards to COVID and everything, and how COVID changed the program and how they were able to kind of adapt to that. And I think I'm forgetting what else I asked them. I had like notes in my phone. And then I asked them personal questions too. I think I had asked who in their life, or what in their life, what play, what person, what play, what piece of art kind of led them here to this path of like, I mean, you're giving your life to helping others like do this. What made you even want to pursue this? And I think I had some other questions about the program. I cannot remember, but yeah, I can't remember, but it was about adaptability. And I think I cannot remember, but
yeah, no, I was just, yeah, it's always interesting, because sometimes people wonder, should I prepare questions? Should I not prepare questions?
Oh, I did. I definitely had questions written down. I didn't go in there like without, yeah, I had some questions on my phone that I just, I wanted to ask them. And I don't think I asked anything that wasn't on my list. I was sure about what I had to ask them. But yeah, I definitely had things I already had thought about. And then that was it. And that was the last callback, because I had my Columbia callback the night before, or the Columbia interview the day before, and the USC callback the day before, and NYU was the last. So I said, thank you so much, goodbye, closed the laptop, and I took a nap.
Collapsed. Oh man, that's
awesome. I went to sleep.
So we'll wrap it up here. I want to know, when did you find out? What was the word? What was the moment?
Yeah, so I was at work. I work with kids at different elementary schools. So I think the final callback was on a Monday night, and then the following Thursday morning, I'm at work with, I think I was with the group of second graders at the time, and my phone's on silent because I'm at work. But it was time to kind of bring the kids in, so I checked my phone to check the time, and I have a missed call from New York, and I was like, oh my God. I grabbed and I had a voicemail, and I was like, and I called the number back, and I was like, hello. And he goes, hey, Noah, it's Carl Caulfield from NYU Grad Acting. How are you doing today? And I was like, you tell me how I'm doing. How am I doing, Carl? And I was like, I'm good. I'm at work right now, and I'm doing well, and I'm having a good day so far. And he goes, well, I hope you're going to be having an even better day, because we'd like to offer you a spot at NYU Grad Acting. And I was like, what? I think I said, oh my God, maybe 75 times over the phone. And he's cracking up. And I'm just saying, oh my God, 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 oh my God. I have the kids like, is Miss Noah okay? And I'm like, she's fine. I'm like on my knees, like, I was like, thank you so much. And I hung up and I text like my family group. I was like, Mom, I got in. Like, it was,
That is phenomenal.
yeah, it was insane. It was insane.
I love that. Yeah, that phone call is always a special one. No, you'll
Yeah.
never get that phone call. That's awesome. Really cool. Really cool. Well, so much to look forward to. You're just going to have a blast. And I know there was a roller coaster of emotions from, panic to nervousness and tension, and to totally free, to feeling like you're in over your head, like all these things, right? And so you kind of, just have to have the courage to move forward no matter what. Mm-hmm. And we don't know what the result's going to be. Clearly, you had surprises, both good and bad.
Yeah.
So I just appreciate you sharing all of that. And like, it's way too close right now for you to really answer this, but we are curious, like, what do you think got you in?
Oh, wow. Wow. That's a great question. I mean, I would like to say, I did, decent work on the pieces I chose, and I worked, and maybe I think just being myself. I think just trying to be as honest as possible. I did my best to not get in my own way. I think that was a big part of it. Just, I think just the freedom of, this is going to be what it's going to be. And I think if I had gripped too tightly onto it, I think everything would have been, my energy would have been different. The pieces would have been different if this was like the end all for my career. But I think just letting go and just like getting out of my way, because I get in my way all the time. I think just trying to get out of my way and just, I don't know if this is answering the question or not. I don't know.
Totally. You'll never have the answer, by the way.
Okay, great. Okay.
But it's fun to think about, and it's really cool for us to listen to, because I mean, all those things are probably totally contributing to it. I just wanted to hear what you thought. I think that's great. You sound like, you were happy with your quality of work, which is a huge factor. Yeah. Even if someone's super talented and super prepared, if for whatever reason they just botch it, like, well, they don't know that you worked really hard and really had really good breakthroughs in rehearsal. All they know is what they saw for those 2 minutes or those 4 minutes, and you weren't good, right? Or the opposite. Sometimes somebody just does so well when the lights shine the brightest, but then when they get called back, it's like, oh, you were just, that was a stroke of lightning that we saw.
Gotcha. Right? Yeah.
So you're saying, like, all of those things, being honest with yourself, just not gripping too tightly, letting it be what it was, and presenting good quality work. Yeah. And I also think powerful. Just the pieces, I like the pieces I had too. I think that was a part of, because I did those pieces. I mean, for all the schools and rehearsing, you do your pieces a ton of times. So it's just like making sure I really did love doing my pieces. I think that was part of it too. Like, I enjoyed
what I was saying. I loved what I got a chance. It was always fun to, I love these pieces and I get to do them a lot. Great. That was also, that was part of it, I think, too.
That's what we always say, right? You want to find pieces you're passionate about, that you love,
Mhm.
that you just want to do a million times, because this is a unique opportunity to pick your own pieces as opposed
Yeah.
to having to do an audition where you're auditioning for someone else's project. All right, last little thing, you know, when it comes to rehearsing and preparing, like, what do you want to share with everyone? But what's the final thought about, like, during your process, like, what is important? What is something that, people should really prioritize?
Um, I think people should prioritize, and maybe what I didn't prioritize well, um, seriously, like time, because there's going to be times where you don't want to rehearse your pieces. And I didn't really give myself the time to not do that. I was kind of already in crunch mode, so I didn't have time to not work on my pieces. Um, but give yourself time to let them like breathe. And because there were times I was rehearsing that I didn't feel great. I didn't feel like I was in a great spot. And I was doubting and I was like, oh gosh, should I have chosen something else? Maybe but like if you give yourself enough time, um, to really understand your pieces and love your pieces, and also give yourself time to not rehearse them. Like if you start early enough, you can take a break and kind of recollect yourself. And I would also like surround yourself with, I had friends who, there were several moments my head was hanging very low during this process. And I had friends around me who kind of like reminded me to pick my chin up. So like just making sure you also have people around who can pick you up. Cause I can speak for everyone. I just think there will be times where your head's gonna be a little low. It's just a lot. It's overwhelmed. It's a lot. And I think just giving yourself the amount proper time to rehearse your pieces and also step away from them and let them breathe. So you don't get super, I didn't really give myself that luxury. So I would say time is huge. Give yourself time.
Amazing. Amazing. Well, that is about all the time we have. Noah,
Yeah.
thank you so much.
Thank
This has
you.
been so fun. And I felt like I took the roller coaster ride with you. um,
Thank you.
yes. And we will be in touch. So we hope you have an awesome day. And thank you again for sharing.
Thank you so much. I'll see you soon.
All right. Bye, Noah.